Yep. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. Is it just me, or does it seem like it's been a little while since I've been behind the Crime Talk microphone here? It has been. Last week, we were only able to do one show, and this week, we've only done, no shows either because I was out of town. And then today I thought I was going to do it. But as I told you earlier in the year and earlier this month, or I guess last month, the schedule from hell has set in, and we have tried to do everything we can to make it all happen. But sometimes, unfortunately, the legal stuff takes priority over Crime Talk. I wish it didn't. You know, we're making our way there. I figure when we have 1 million subscribers, and with your help, hopefully we get there soon, then that means I think Scott can probably quit his day job and devote his time to Crime Talk 100%. Although it seems like I spend a lot of time on it lots of days, and at least it seems like I spend a lot of time thinking about how to make it better every time I'm not here and thinking about it. Seems like I'm constantly thinking about it. So I want to thank everybody for joining us while we kind of come online here for everybody as the number of people that are joining us here in this lovely spring day. We're on obviously YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Rumble. I think that's it, isn't it? And CrimeTalkTV.com. So we're there for anywhere. You can't miss us. We're just like that, big zit on somebody's nose, right? You can't turn away. That's Crime Talk. But we have a lot to talk about because I haven't been available to do a lot of things. Oh, don't forget, you can also download us on any of your favorite podcasting apps, which I might note the Lori Vallow audio. We are getting huge downloads on the podcasting apps. So remember, any of your favorite podcasting apps, go to Crime Talk, and you will find us there. So you can listen to the Lori Vallow trial going on. So what would I like to talk about first this evening? Okay. Two things. Two of the most hated women in America, right? Lori Vallow and Letecia Stauch, who's on trial for the murder of her stepson, Gannon Stauch, down there in El Paso, Colorado. She has pled not guilty by reason of insanity. And if you listen to her attorney's opening statements, it was basically, she's crazy because this makes no sense. Now, if you've watched the trial, you've probably got a general understanding, I think, of the circumstances. And I could see why Lori Vallow would never want to, or I'm sorry, why Letecia Stauch would never want to be in a courtroom. She is coming across as a horrible human being. And I think, we'll obviously give her the presumption of innocence because she's entitled to that. The defense has not presented their case in chief, which is supposed to be that of a psychiatrist, to say that she was suffering from some sort of basically out-of-body experience, and therefore she did not know what she was doing, and therefore she cannot be held legally responsible for the death of young Gannon. Now, it may be a little difficult for the jury to get by the fact that young Gannon was basically beaten, stabbed, as well as shot and dumped along the side of a road. And then his stepmother, who basically said, yes, I will take care of this child as my own. Well, let's just say she failed miserably at it. And then ultimately what happened is, she comes up with at least 10, 12 different versions, I think, as to what happened to Gannon. Oh, he went to play, didn't come back, went to a friend's house. Oh, this guy was doing terrible things to me. And then, he must have kidnapped Gannon. You name it, every ridiculous concocted story that would take place, she tried to come up with. Then we have, obviously, the Lori Vallow trial. Lori Vallow and Letecia Stauch, literally, these cases began right about the same time. 3 years in the making. Finally, they've begun. I understand why Letecia Stauch doesn't want to be in a courtroom. It doesn't look good for her. They're going to say she's having this out-of-body experience, but I think her willingness to concoct stories, you can say, oh, is that a fear? Oh, woe is me, etc. But I think most people are going to say, wow, that seems like a pretty sane person right about then. But she was able to turn it all off, and she was so manipulative. I don't know. We'll give her the presumption of innocence, but I think it's a tough time in there. And if you've seen the defense attorneys, it's almost they're like, hey, can we speed this up? Because, we need to get going. It's almost like they want to stipulate to the facts and go home. Then let's jump to Lori Vallow. Lori Vallow. Her case started. They seated the jury basically last week, but they swore them in on Monday. If you go to day one of the audio, it's classic what takes place in a courtroom. The jury is instructed. Here's kind of the general charges. You're all sworn in. Let's get to it. The prosecutor's opening statement was pretty generic. I don't think really we've learned that much new from that case that we didn't already know, other than maybe the Tammy Daybell died of, I'm sure I'll get it wrong, asphyxiation. Someone will let me know. Not a whole lot of news there. Then when the photos of young JJ and Tylee are being shown, she wants to be excused from the proceedings. Judge Boyce says, oh no. And now normally the defendant doesn't get to come and go as she pleases in a courtroom. Okay. That's not the way it works. You wanted a trial, you get to see the evidence. And, from his defense attorney's perspective, I always think it's interesting when you show up and, like, here's the client, like, here's the autopsy photos. Should we take a look at those? And then I was like, I don't want to see that. Yeah, I don't want to see those. Well, guess what? You're going to see him in trial, so let's not have any shock factor now. Let's take a look at it. And a lot of times people don't want to do it. Clearly, those photos must have got to Lori Vallow, and but Judge Boyce said, you are going to stay in the courtroom. State believes you're responsible for this. They have to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt. You asked for your trial. Sit down, shut up, and look at the evidence. You are allegedly responsible for this. Your own children. So, not looking good for her either. But not a whole lot of surprises. And then, obviously, today, tragic situation. One of the prosecutors had a death in the family. Wasn't really specified. Been some speculation, but nothing confirmed. So no need to speculate on any of those things. But the prosecution asked for a recess today. The court granted it. The defense, obviously, even if they objected, it's going to be the circumstance situation where the judge was going to grant it anyway. You don't want to look like the unreasonable individual in that particular case. So they did not object. So they stopped the court proceedings today. They are to resume tomorrow at 8:30. Testimony will resume. And although the court has not granted, obviously, video access here at CrimeTalk, we are paying, I don't know exactly what we're paying just yet, but I know it's going to be expensive. But that's okay, because we're bringing the truth. We truly believe this case was a case that should have been broadcast for the world to see. And I don't think there's anything that's come out thus far that is particularly shocking or so sensitive that we could not have handled it. I think that everything that we've heard thus far, we're just getting the person that actually discovered it, not a summary of what somebody said at the preliminary hearing for actually Chad Daybell, but it's the same facts. So it really is not nothing has come out that's so, oh my gosh, it's going to sway the court so much and it's going to affect somebody's right to a fair trial if they hear this. They're just not going to be able to appreciate that in any way. I don't think there's anything, which goes to my point. What makes this trial so different than any other trial where they've televised it? Nobody says anybody didn't get a fair trial. It was reasonable. They were given due process. Frankly, I think everybody gets on their game when the camera is on. Frankly, it helps everybody. But so there's no audio. We got there's no video, but we get the audio. And as soon as we get it, Frank, the hardest working man in show business, gets it up onto the podcast site as well as all of the sites simultaneously. So thank you, Frank, for doing that. And he's also making sure that we get the Letecia Stauch feed. And many, many people have said, not that we're bragging, but I'm going to brag about Frank here, says that our feed is so much better than some of the other networks that are bringing this to them. So just another reason why you need to come to CrimeTalk for all of your issues that you want to see, all the cases you want to see. And then we are going to obviously give you the analysis of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly for both sides. We don't pull any punches. We just call it the way we see it. That's the way we do. And sometimes it just is not good for one particular party. Let me know in the comments here, if you want to call in. We didn't set that up tonight, but we'll have it for our Patreon show. So a quick reminder, if you want to become a Patreon member after this show, we'll do that, but we'll continue the conversation. And then we will be able to take phone calls as well. So let's take a look at some of the questions and comments here in the chat. Now, they go by pretty quick. We've got a few people here, and they're chiming in, which is great. We love that. But sometimes they go by fast, and not that we're begging. We're not. But I'm telling you, it does help if it is a super chat because it gets highlighted. Just saying. Okay. So we'll just go from there. Let's see here. Frank, they can hear you giggle in the background, Frank, and they like it. Yes. Hardest working man in show business. Seriously. See, look, Cheryl says, yes, your feed is clearest. I've tried listening to others, and yours is by far superior. Thanks, Cheryl. It's all Frank. I wish I could say I had anything to do with it, but I don't. I just pay the electric bill. That's all we can do here. So yeah, we appreciate that. Yeah, Tanya, I keep trying to figure out why Letecia kept telling the officer's name was Tisha until the one officer asked for the second time to get her South Carolina ID. And she says, oh, it's La to the Tisha. Because she's trying to play games, trying not to give her name. Okay? I mean, seriously, I get it. I've been through some trials where they have been some very, very bad autopsy photos. I have done terrible cases where it has been child abuse resulting in death. Okay? And I know the feeling where literally you want to crawl under the table, but you can't. You have to put on the face, act like it's nothing. It's nothing. Okay? And so I know how the attorneys feel in this particular case. They have a job required under the Constitution of the United States to make sure that due process is followed, a fair trial, And then if the prosecution proves their case, it is the solemn oath and obligation of the juries in both the Letecia Stauch case and the Lori Vallow case to find her guilty, find them both guilty if the prosecution proves their case. The prosecution is really kind of working, you kind of set the stage. They like to go in some chronological order. But they got a lot of questions. Let's just jump. Letecia Stauch, it's a long, drawn-out guilty plea, in my humble opinion, okay? It's not guilty by reason of insanity. It is an affirmative defense that says, I did it. That's why when you see the attorney sitting there kind of drinking their Diet Cokes and just kind of, yep. Is it lunch already? Let's get to this. We got to get our one witness. It's an affirmative defense. They have one witness to call. The jury's either going to believe it or not. That's it. Lori Vallow, they got a little more to work with. Now, yes, they got some explaining to do, and I thought the prosecutor did a very good job kind of laying it out in their opening statement, which is what we've been talking about here for the last several years. The biggest thing is going to be, if you're a caring parent, mother, and you don't know where your kids are, you're out there looking for them every second of the day. You're not going from, Arizona to Idaho, back to Arizona, going to Missouri, and knowing that your kids are not somewhere to be found. And then try to pressure your friend to say the kids are with you. I mean, I'm just saying that shows a little consciousness of guilt. I saw a couple of super chats popped up, so let's take those in the order in which they came in. Well, Michelle Bell gave a super chat, but there's no question. Michelle, you can always ask a question, but we appreciate that. Carrie, hearing that Tammy died of asphyxiation was very revealing. Do you think Chad has hands on it, or did Alex visit that night? Well, we're going to have to see. The prosecution, I think, all but telegraph that their position is what I always said was going to be the position for the defense, was probably that Alex Cox did it. I mean, basically, the prosecution's theory of the prosecution is that Lori Vallow becomes so infatuated with Chad Daybell that they got to get rid of him. And they have this belief that these kids become this dark energy and they need to be eliminated. And to get rid of them, they couldn't be cleansed or some sort of whatever they were calling it. It's just a bunch of gobbledygook. Let's call it what it is. Okay. But I guess if you get enough people to believe you're gobbledygook, next thing you know, you got a cult, I guess. And so Lori Vallow's defense is going to be like, well, I didn't do it. I didn't do it anyway. But the prosecution said, even in their opening, that Alex Cox, Lori Vallow's brother, would do anything for her. Everybody believes, and I think the evidence is going to show, that it was Alex Cox that shot the gun at Tammy Daybell, missed. And then immediately after that, Lori Vallow is heard talking to someone, presumably Chad Daybell, something to the effect of that Alex Cox, can't do anything right. He's basically an idiot. And, that's going to be it. I mean, but the prosecution's going to have to show that Alex Cox did these terrible crimes, and it was a conspiracy. Remember, a conspiracy, they're not usually written down. They're usually not documented. Hey, let's 2 or 3 people agree to commit an illegal act and let's document it. It usually doesn't happen. A lot easier when you have somebody that was a part of that agreement come in and explain to that. But there's been no anybody that's rolled in this particular case. So the prosecution has to be able to get this evidence into evidence. Now, what Lori Vallow says to anyone is an admission by a party opponent. It's an admission, so it comes in as evidence. Gets a little trickier when it comes to Alex Cox, who's not going to appear, but be not subject to cross-examination because he's dead. So how do you get those statements and how do you lay the foundation? Well, they have to have been made in furtherance of the conspiracy. Now, remember, we weren't privy to most of the pretrial rulings that the court made. So we don't know if the court has already made a finding that there was a conspiracy between Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell, and Alex Cox. And the prosecution's theory seems to be that Lori Vallow kind of hints to Chad or Alex Cox, and, with Chad approving, yep, the ones with the dark spirits need to go away. You know what happens to those dark spirits? Oh, JJ and Tylee just happen to be a dark spirit. Guess we got to get them to go away. Gee, who makes people go away around here? Oh, Lori, I am far too pretty and I am a goddess and too busy trying to get my 144 followers and helping Chad promote his book. And therefore, I need to, can't do it myself. I'm too busy. But, if Chad or Alex were the one to take care of some things, I wouldn't be any worse the wear, right? And months go by and nobody says, she doesn't go to anybody and say, hey, my kids are missing. I think that's pretty good consciousness of guilt type of evidence that's going to show you knew you didn't have to go searching for them because you knew exactly where they were. Right? On Chad Daybell's property. We have Tylee that, according to the reports, was in very bad shape, where she had been burned. JJ was still in his pajamas, buried in a shallow grave. I mean, I just never get it when it comes to people that hurt kids. I just don't get it. And like I said, I've handled cases where I've dealt with where they've been severely beaten, bruised, deceased, and they're just the toughest cases around. And I'm telling you, it is terrible because a mother, and I had a judge say this once, and it just absolutely stuck. It was sentencing on a child abuse resulting in death case. And the judge, a very wise judge, got up there. And of course, the prosecution was arguing for, the 48 years, and I was arguing for the 16 or something in between. And, young mother, blah, 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 blah. I think, but in that particular case, the child was killed. And instead of contacting the police, they put a kid in a duffel bag, got on the bus, stopped and had lunch at McDonald's, and then went and buried her in the woods. Not good facts, right? And the judge said, listen, you're a mother. And throughout nature, mothers protect their cubs. And you didn't do that. And the judge gave her the 48 years. Okay. And some of the things you have to realize, these cases are the worst. The worst. We have dead children. And, Tylee and JJ, they're children. They're kids. Let's face it, they're kids. And a juror sees that. And remember, you're not some guy that's been doing this for a long time that can basically, eat his lunch looking at autopsy photos. Like, what? No big deal. We're talking about jurors that are probably going to need some, therapy or something like that. And a lot of jurisdictions, and if it's a particularly heinous crime, they will offer counseling services to people. Because if you're not used to, for lack of a better term, seeing that stuff, it can be pretty traumatizing the first time. Just saying. So we'll have to wait and obviously see how that comes out. But it's a kid case. It's going to be terrible. And I'm kind of glad that Lori Vallow's being made to sit there. She doesn't have to look at it. But guess what? The jurors are looking at her, not looking at it. That's going to speak volumes as it relates to her. Question here. I think this is interesting. A lot of people just don't understand not guilty by reason of insanity. Well, let me explain it to you. And it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So, for example, in Idaho, where Lori Vallow is, they don't have a not guilty by reason of insanity. But if one is found guilty, and as I understand their procedure, that there's evidence that one has basically mental incapacities, they don't send them off to prison. They send them off to, I'm sure I'll get in trouble for this, the funny farm. They send them off to the state hospital to, be treated. And normally the term of incarceration is the same term that one could be sentenced to for the crime which they're committed. So if it's life, they could probably more than likely will stay there the rest of their life. So here in Colorado, we have a different little scheme. It's called not guilty by reason of insanity. So if the defense can, and you have to raise not guilty by reason of insanity, things at arraignments or no later than that, or otherwise you have to ask for good cause for an excuse why it wasn't done earlier. And sometimes the cases just progress. It doesn't really, you do your investigation. You just don't know. Not guilty by reason of insanity. I'll be honest with you, I've only done it a couple of times. It doesn't come up that often. But we had some really good results on one where I had said public defender had it. They just kind of ignored the guy. It was kind of during COVID. We got on, and the first thing was like, this is not right. And talked to a doctor and like, man, this guy's not NGRI. And everybody agreed to it. They're like, the state comped him or did an evaluation on it. They're like, yeah, NGRI. And so, somebody that was looking at spending, the better part of his adulthood in prison is, in the state hospital. So let's talk about NGRI real quick. Not guilty by reason of insanity. In Colorado, it has to be raised like in Letecia Stauch. You can raise it for good, usually at arraignment. If not, after that, you have to have good cause. But you have to find an expert that's going to say, this person suffers from a mental defect or disease that basically says at the time of the offense could not form the requisite mens rea. Basically, you didn't appreciate right from wrong. You just didn't know, okay? Were you totally psychotic? Well, understand, you can't be drunk and you can't be on drugs to be NGRI. Usually guns and alcohol takes away NGRI. That can be, try to submit as like, oh, he was so drunk he couldn't form the requisite mental intent. But it's not going to be sufficient. So you need a doctor. Bottom line is you need a doctor to say this person suffers from a mental disease or defect. And in this particular case, Letecia Stauch, let me see if I had it handy. I thought I had it handy. Oh, yeah. They're saying that she had dissociative identity disorder. And that is dissociative disorders involves the problem with memory, identity, emotion, perception, behavior, and sense of self. Dissociative symptoms can potentially disrupt every area of mental functioning. Examples of dissociative symptoms include the experience of detachment or feeling as if one is outside of one's body and a loss of memory or amnesia. Dissociative disorders are frequently associated with previous experience of trauma. 3 types of dissociative disorders: dissociative identity disorder, dissociative amnesia, and depersonalization derealization disorder. That's basically what they're going. There's out-of-body experience, doesn't remember doing it, and just really bad thing. That's the Letecia Stauch defense. That's why the attorneys aren't objecting. They're letting everything come in because they're saying, yep, it's horrible. And frankly, almost the more horrible it is, the better it is. Because who could do that? And remember, in Letecia Stauch, they're saying there is no motive. Why would she do this? She loves the kid. Just the day before, they were having a big old family hug picture. Okay? So the defense is raised not guilty by reason of insanity. It's an affirmative defense saying, I did it. But just like self-defense is an affirmative defense, which is, yeah, I did it, but it was justified. I was doing self-defense to prevent a greater harm. NGRI is the same thing. I did it, but I was crazy at the time. suffering from this, unable to form anything. I don't know. I think it's going to be tough given all of the stories that Letecia Stauch came up with and all the different things that she blamed about it, which were just lies. And you can say, well, I don't remember. If you just said, I don't remember what happened. I think I did something. I just don't know. But, maybe that'd be a little more credible. Let me help cooperate. Oh, my God, I can't believe this. Give me mental health, give me treatment. Not 20 different stories from here to Sunday and then, take the body and hide it and all that stuff. That kind of shows some consciousness of guilt, in my humble opinion. We'll give her the presumption of innocence, but we know she's guilty. She did it. Okay. That's what she's pled. So if she is convicted of convicted, but they say guilty, or I say not guilty by reason of insanity. Really what it's saying is guilty, but you're insane. That means she doesn't get a free pass. She doesn't go home. It simply means she just goes to this state hospital and they will try to fix her, which they probably will not be able to. And she will stay there the rest of her life. Very similar to the system set up in the federal system where remember John Hinckley Jr., who shot President Reagan. They said he was, NGRI. He spends the next 40 years in mental hospitals. Now I think he has his own YouTube channel and he makes music or something along those lines. So I guess in 40 years, if Letecia Stauch was found to be NGRI, she could get out in, 40, 50 years. Probably not going to happen. I'm rolling. If I'm going to be a betting man on this one, I'm going to say guilty. Okay. It's a long drawn out guilty plea, but it is, it's a little concerning the way that, she just did things. We're talking, it's just terrible. Dana Lynn, are you going to go to Idaho at all, Scott? Looking at it. Yes, that's the goal. Okay. So if some of you may know, I know our Patreon people know, because if you're on Patreon, and we usually do it on Tuesday night, but you get a little more detail into, the life of Scott Reich. But the new CrimeTalk 1 has arrived. And let's just say it moves so much faster than the old CrimeTalk 1. And let me just take a quick look here. Let's just see how far it would be to go to, Boise. Okay. Let's take, because that's where the case is, right? I think we could do it and we could come home. KBOI. Let's see here. KBOI. Let's just take a quick look. Sorry, but let's just see here. But anyway, Scott doesn't have the type rating for this particular plane, so I have to have a instructor go with me, but that'll be hopefully fixed soon, and we won't need that. But that's okay. I'm all about being safe and getting there fast. Yeah, it's 549 nautical miles, so we should be able to be there to Boise, right, where the trial is. Yeah, hour and a half. Wouldn't that be wonderful, Frank? We could go and we could. Somebody asked me the other day, like, "Oh my gosh, now that you got this new CrimeTalk 1, you're going to be doing a lot more traveling." Well, yes, but I also hope to be home in my own bed at night because it'll be so much faster. That's the whole goal. It's like the SUV lane. When the rest of the traffic is sitting there, but there's nobody in the SUV lane, and you jump into it, and you're like, "Yeah, this is worth the $2, right?" Because it's time. It's time that you're never going to get back. So let's see here. So yes, the plan is, yes, I can't say when, but hopefully soon. Atlantic RL, thank you for that super chat. Why do you think Letecia did it? Well, the evidence thus far is pretty, certainly indicates that she did it. There's nothing to say she didn't do it. I don't think it was, what was the guy's name? The brother? Yeah. Not the brother. For Letecia. Remember she said she blamed it on the Mexican guy working around the way or something like that? Guido or Gordo or something like that. Eduardo, that was it. Who else would have done it? And like I said, based upon her plea, NGRI, not guilty by insanity, she's saying, I did it, but I was insane. I couldn't form the requisite mental intent. So why do you think Letecia did it? She said so in her plea. That's not me making it up. That's her. So yeah, I feel quite comfortable saying that she did it, and I don't think I need to worry about anything. We'll still give her the presumption of innocence. She could win. The jury could be so convinced. Yeah. Why did she do it? I think that's the $1 million question, right? Why? Nobody really knows why she did it. There's no good explanation. Probably. Dang, nice and fast. Please don't do it. John Jr. is too much plane, not enough pilot. Well, I hope not. I've been flying for a while, and I'm very safe, and been able to go off with my instructor to make sure I don't harm myself or those around me. Those are always good. But I'll be honest with you, the jet's actually easier to fly. No kidding. Anyway. Mary Swampy, did you all hear her brother testify? Wow. I don't think I heard that part. What did the brother say, Frank?
He was completely bad about it.
As to her. Yeah, that's what I thought. Nobody, I mean, she's just, yeah, she hated Gannon. I mean, I don't think we'll ever know for sure, but, I think she just didn't want to have another kid. I mean, that's kind of it to me. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, come on, adults, picking somebody your own size, right? Scott, what do you think's going through John Pryor's mind right about now? If he's smart, he's in there watching the case right now. I'm not saying he's dumb. I don't know what his schedule is, but if I were him, I would be watching the trial, seeing how witnesses present. If at a minimum, I'd send me a law clerk or an associate attorney down there to see how things are doing. How does it affect the jury? Everyone knows the autopsy photos are bad. But, this comes down to I still think it's a tactical decision. Lori Vallow, crazy, like a fox, maybe. Let's face it. She never waived speedy trial, right? And the judge tried to keep the trials together. And then John Pryor made the argument, no, I need more time. I'm not going to be prepared. Separate me. So that's good for John Pryor's client, Chad Daybell. I still think Lori Vallow made the best tactical decision. Why? She didn't waive speedy trial. She said, Judge, you violated my speedy trial rights by not getting me to trial within 6 months from date of not guilty, minus any time that was told for that second brief visit to the state hospital where she was found to be competent. And so they get to make that argument. It's preserved. And let's say it goes up to court of appeals. If there's a conviction, she has to say, hey, you violated my speedy trial rights. Send me home, which would be the remedy. And on top of that, by doing that, Lori Vallow, got the death penalty dismissed. Now, do I really think they were going to give her the death penalty? Yeah, maybe. But do you think they were actually going to implement it ever? No. Let's just get realistic. Idaho hasn't, I think, put somebody to death in like 35 years. I think Texas is the most efficient, if I'm familiar with their system, which is basically, let's have a separate criminal court kind of set up for criminal cases. Let's expedite these as quickly as possible and get them done. The legislature could make these rules that it has to be done within a certain amount of time. and expedite them so that, the governor has to do it. But then all the governors are like, well, we can't do this. We have to put a moratorium on. Like here in Colorado, we have the death penalty, or we did, I should say. And it was a great bargaining tool. And I think, if it went to the legislature is the one that did it away with it here, and the governor signed it. But I really think, look at California. I think California, it would be the death penalty in Colorado. If it went to a vote of the people, it would be on, still be on the books. California, voters approved it years and years ago. It's been on the books. It's a bargaining tool for those heinous cases. Hey, we'll drop the death penalty if you plead guilty. Whether you agree or not, it's a bargaining tool. Frankly, it's never implemented, so what it is. So maybe to Chad, it would depend on the effective date going forward, but we'd have to wait and see. Let's see here. Question: if a witness were to blurt out a prior bad act of the defendant, i.e., Lori, charged with Charles Vallow murder in Arizona, could that trigger mistrial? Yes. Yes. Okay. Witnesses should only testify as to what they observed, either through seeing it, hearing it, smelling it, I guess taste, or if they felt something. But that's it. You don't get to opine or discuss other things that you have no business talking about. And the fact that she's been charged in another jurisdiction is of no relevance in this particular case. They can bring in that evidence as potential 404B evidence, but they can't say that she's ultimately been charged. So, yeah, it should not come up, or it will result in a mistrial. And we were talking about this the other day. In my experience, the people who usually cause the mistrial, it's police officers. They just want to get that little dig in, and they just want to stick it to somebody, and then they bring something up. It's just the way it is. Let's see here. Scott, why do you think Letecia did it? Well, because she said she did. Sorry. That was the previous one we did. Yeah, thanks. All right, let's see here. Pretty sure Lori will rise to Queen Bee once in prison. Will have a nice group flying monkeys flying all over. And I was listening to, I think, the first day, and when it first came out, and I really just don't get what the hell were Chad and Lori and all their little devotees believing in. What is it with all these end of world groups that makes them like all come together? The world will come to an end someday, I'm sure, but I think it will come from like a big old meteor or something that hits the United States or hits the world, the Earth. Kind of like when, they think that the dinosaurs went extinct, a big old meteor hit us. But nobody knows when that's coming. I remember a couple of years ago, they were all, oh, we're going to die. You had the James Jones people, oh, they're coming for us. You got the, what was it? The people down, there was a good documentary on it, down in Waco. Same thing. Oh, the earth is coming to an end. We're all going to die. And like, what the hell were these people thinking? I just don't get it. To think that, just, his little energy thing and dark spirits and get rid of them. And, his wife just happens to die by being suffocated. And Lori Vallow's in the other, in Hawaii at the time. But yet she's all over this guy. I told you, this has been my theory from all along. You got this 50-something-year-old guy, been married to this woman. She's probably nice enough, good mom, etc. And you get Lori Vallow into the picture. She's completely infatuated, just goes head over heels as to what this guy is believing. And this guy, I mean, he just gets his world rocked by Lori Vallow. And he's probably like, what in the heck is going on? But she is digging me. And man, for whatever I say, she digs it 10 times more. Let's roll with this. And, the defense when Chad Daybell comes up, it's going to be like, maybe, hey, man, I made some mistakes. I got involved with this Lori Vallow chick. She rocked my world. And I was just kind of rolling with it. But there's no way that I would ever have killed my wife and put, kids in my front yard and backyard. I would have nothing to do with this whatsoever. And, it's just, and Lori's like, hey, Chad says these people, they got dark energy. And when people get dark energy, Alex, you know what that means? Their bodies need to be disposed of in some way or the other. If only we had some way to get rid of, I don't know, these two children and Tammy, that way we could be together, right? If that's not a conspiracy, that certainly is complicity. If you aid, encourage, or abet somebody, that means you're guilty just like you did it yourself, right? You can't go and urge somebody to go harm somebody else and then say, well, I didn't do it. I didn't touch anybody. I'm innocent as can be. Wouldn't you love to know what Alex Cox would say if he was still alive? But he did not. He died mysteriously, right? Of the some sort of aneurysm or heart popping or something. Something popped in his brain housing group, I think. But there, do you think he would be loyal to Lori all the way to the end, or he say, I was crazy at the time. I didn't know what I was doing. This is like Charles Manson type of stuff, right? Where Charles Manson hangs back at the house and says, go take care of the evildoers. You're guilty just like you did it yourself. Renata, he did not die of natural causes. What are the chances of that? I don't know. Like I said, I still think one of the reasons why Chad Daybell never really argued for bond was because everyone around Lori Vallow winds up dead. Hell, her own attorney should probably, probably should be a little worried. But at least Chad Daybell was safe in custody, at least if he wants to live, right? Come on, man. He's crazy. Yeah. Divorce would have cost them money. T Diva. It's so, how many times have we talked about this on so many cases where the wife winds up disappearing, right? Wife kind of, I remember what my divorce attorney told me when there was, ridiculous amounts of money were being thrown around by my ex-wife's attorney. And my attorney looked at me and said, you married her. Like, what can you do, right? But not once did it ever cross my mind to think, oh, something terrible should happen to her. No way would I ever have thought that. And the old joke, why divorces are so expensive? Because they're worth it. Just kidding, right? To all the happily married people out there. But I guarantee you, no matter what Chad would have had to have paid for a settlement, seriously, Do you think he would give that up all right now to have his freedom back? Yes. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Yes. It's very interesting. Mary has a good question, right? I'm trying to imagine the jurors who are sitting there hearing all this for the first time. Now, as from I understand from the jury selection, a lot of the jurors had obviously heard about this case. It's been, national, international news. Certainly, I think it's been big news in Idaho as well. And so, you're going to be tough to find jurors that didn't hear anything about it. But if you hear people that, hear about this, and that's what I know we want to keep jurors anonymous, but wouldn't you love to have cameras in the courtroom and to see the jurors looking at the defendant when the bad stuff happens? And I'm telling you this from my own experience. When the bad stuff starts coming in as a defense attorney, I try to make it my duty at that point to make sure I sit up straight. Look at the jury, act like nothing's wrong. I knew all this terrible evidence was coming in, and it doesn't bother me because we've got the truth on our side. And you're thinking, oh my God, they're throwing daggers at us with their eyes. This is not good. We are losing the jury. That's what's going on inside. That's what's going on in Letecia Stauch. That's what's going on at Lori Vallow's table. And the reason why she doesn't want to be there, why she's got her arms crossed and her head down, it's finally coming to realization for her. Before, it was all fun and games. It was all, we're just trying to get 144 people. And, it's real when you hear it in court. And sometimes, and I do not know why, but oftentimes defendants just don't believe that something as bad is going to take place. And you have to tell them and say, these witnesses, the ones who've given an interview or wrote a statement as to what took place that night, that's what they're going to say. Well, how do you know they're going to say that? Well, they said it here in their statement or in their video. My investigators talked to them, or I went with the investigator, and I asked them. They're going to say the exact same thing. Clients sometimes don't believe it. They somehow think that nothing bad is going to come to court. And I'm telling them, you must assume that all the witnesses are going to be there and that something bad is going to happen. It's just the way it is. Okay? The Lori Vallow and the Chad Daybell case, or Lori Vallow case and the Letecia Stauch case, excuse me. This is what we would refer to as the only way we're going to win these two cases probably is by the big bus defense. What is the big bus defense, Scott, that what you speak? I have never heard of the big bus defense. Well, you won't hear this in, some of the other channels. You won't find it written in any law books anywhere. I'm telling you from personal experience, there are cases that the only way you're going to win it is by the big bus defense. And the big bus defense is the only way you're going to win this damn thing is if every one of the government's witnesses was on a big bus and it drove off a cliff and nobody was going to show up for court. That's the only way you would win the case. Okay? And the big bus defense never works because nobody gets on the bus all at the same time. Okay? It's just the way it is. So we know Letecia Stauch is guilty because she said she is by her plea. Lori Vallow, I think, is coming to the realization that she's probably going to spend her life in prison based upon the fact that she probably, for the first time, got to see the pictures of her children removed and found in shallow graves on Chad Daybell's property, and they got to see the autopsy photos of a burned Ty Lee. You know, maybe you've seen something in passing, you've seen it in a book or something. But when you see a child that one has been particularly desecrated in that particular way, if you've ever seen charred bodies, you know, removed from, you know, an accident or a burnt building, it is not a pleasant sight. And the jurors, I mean, the prosecution, hats off to them. Usually they kind of save that stuff till a little bit later, you know, kind of chronologically do it. But they're kind of starting in a little bit of reverse chronological order here. I mean, they established, okay, kids were missing, but they kind of jumped straight to the chase, got the jury's attention, kind of smacked them in the face saying, here it is. This is what this woman is responsible for. I bet it got their attention. Because some people, it's not real until you actually see the pictures or you see the video. That's the way it is. Super chat. Louisiana girl. What do you think about law enforcement not letting T leave after she asked to, even after asking for an attorney? We're talking about Letecia here, correct? Yeah. I went back through. I don't recall. I think they litigated the motion to suppress and it was denied. You know, I always joke, and I'm not kidding. When you say you want an attorney, that's what you got to say. Do we have that video queued up, Frank? Okay. Let me explain to you when somebody needs an attorney. Tell me when you're ready to roll, Frank.
You, get up. Yeah, you.
All right, lawyer. Lawyer. Lawyer.
That's how you invoke. Okay? Lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. That's how you invoke your right to counsel. Clear, unequivocal, I want a lawyer. I want my lawyer. I want a lawyer. I want any lawyer, but I want a lawyer at this very second, this very right moment, right now. What is the first thing you say when you came in contact with him? Lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. There you go. He is invoked. This is not invoking. So what do you want to talk to me about? Well, before we can do this conversation, I need to advise you of your Miranda warnings. Do you understand that you're being interviewed in regards to the murder of Cannon Stauch? Yes, I am. Do you understand you have a right to remain silent? Yes, I do. Initial there. Do you understand you can end this interview at any time you want? Do you understand you have a right to a lawyer? Yes, I do. Would you like to speak with a lawyer? No. I'm just here to, assist and find out what's going on. It's all going to be okay. Big misunderstanding. And the cops are like, you know how a dog, when you start, giving them treats, like old baked in Colorado CBD treats, they start salivating because they want the treat so bad. Like, whoa. That's what happens when a cop advises somebody of the Miranda rights and they want to sit and talk. The cop's like, man, you just made my day so much easier. So what's going on, officer? Oh, I don't know what's going on. That must have been this. They just lock themselves into a different story. Even if you say, do I need a lawyer? Do you think I need a lawyer? Should I get a lawyer? I can tell you in Colorado and even in some federal cases, that isn't good enough. You have to unequivocally say, I want a lawyer. And then the cop's going to say, well, if you want a lawyer, then I can't conduct this interview anymore. Are you sure you want to do that? Or would you like to talk with me a little further? Well, you seem like such a nice guy and I think you're really trying to help me out. So, I'll keep talking. What other questions do you have? And by the end of the interview, the person gets arrested. And of course, the cop didn't have enough evidence to arrest him normally at the beginning of the interview. Otherwise, they'd be under arrest. And the cop did even a better job as it relates to Mirandizing somebody, because they Mirandized them when they weren't even in custody, right? Remember, you only have to be Mirandized, ladies and gentlemen, when two things take place. First, you have to be in custody. Second, they have to be interrogating you regarding the reason that you're in custody. So if you go down and voluntarily speak with them, and then you say, well, maybe I'd like to go. And they're like, okay, you want to go? You can leave at any time. Normally the cops can say, yeah, you can't really go anymore. Oh, really? Why? Well, I thought I wasn't under arrest. Well, you weren't, but now you are based upon what you told me. So I'm going to arrest you at this time. So, rule of thumb, I'm telling you, if there's any legal advice, although I'm not giving anybody legal advice, but if you ever get in a situation where they are reading you your Miranda rights, you say, didn't I see that on the CrimeTalk coffee mug at one point? And what does it say? Lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. And it's probably going to be on body cam these days. So there would be a clear, concise, and unequivocal invocation of attorney rights. Just saying. You're welcome. Okay? Don't say, I don't know what's going on. I need to find out what's going on here. I'm going to go talk to that detective. I'm going to find out what's going on. Clients will be like, I didn't make any statement, man. I didn't really make any statement. I don't know what it is. Clients think any statement they make has to somehow be written down. That like makes it official. No, anything you say, numbskull. That's why they videotape everything these days. You know who forced videos? Do you know who forced body cams? It was the defense attorneys. Oh, way back when. Officer, you didn't record this in any way, did you? You didn't get a little digital recorder and record this so we could have the best information. We're just relying upon your rewritten report based upon the notes that you destroyed. And then cell phones came around. Oh, you didn't get a dash cam or you didn't get a cell phone. No, no, no. So eventually they're like, fine, you want. And who is the biggest opponent of that? Body cams, recording of videos. Hell, the FBI still doesn't record videos. It's against their policy, their FBI policy. They still don't record interviews. It's all summaries. Why not? Do you know the number of allegations of police brutality, coerced interrogations have literally spiked down to nothing because of body cams and videos in the interview rooms, because it's all there to be recorded. Just saying. Super chat. What is the one thing to not tell your lawyer? No, be absolutely brutally honest. The one thing not to tell your lawyer, a lie. That's what you should not tell them. A lie. Tell them the truth. I'm telling you, the defense attorney is not going to judge you. He may say, man, you're screwed. But guess what? The truth, if this is the point of arrest and this is the point of trial, a pretty close version of what happened is going to come out between arrest and trial. It's just the way it is. So you need to tell your attorney everything you possibly could about the facts of the case. And Tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because let's face it, I always tell my clients, listen, if I go to court and something comes out that you didn't tell me, I'm going to look real silly. It's going to be looking like I get my trousers pulled down around my ankles in court. I'm going to look really silly for a second. I'm going to have a big old red face, but you're probably going to prison. So now would be the time to tell me so I can zig if I need to zag. Let me know what I need to do. Or sometimes you have to know, just like that old Kenny Rogers song. Sometimes you have to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and know when to run. Okay? Although attorneys cannot advise clients to run. Let's just be clear. I've never done that. But you get the point. Okay? So don't lie. Bitter Sweetheart 46 and 2. What is the best advice on lawyer etiquette? I think that lawyers can be, you can be polite in court. Frankly, you cannot be rude in court. You will get shut down. And that's why it is so hard, in my opinion, to watch like these talking heads on news programs where they're interrupting each other. In court, it's not done that way. You don't interrupt. Maybe in trial when you object to preserve an evidentiary objection, but whoever brought the motion in court, they get to go first. They get to present their witnesses, cross-examination. When they're done, the evidence goes. You have argument. Prosecution goes, the defense goes. If the prosecution has the burden on the motion, which they usually do, they get the last word, just like in trial. Nobody's talking over anybody. You can be a respectful, polite of everyone. You may disagree, and sometimes you have to agree to disagree, but it doesn't mean that you have to be rude. I mean, let's face it, everyone in there is an advocate for their side. Do you really think the prosecution is truly there for truth, justice, and the American way? Let's get for real. They're there to win. Now, they're supposed to have ethical obligations to seek justice, but they want to win. They think what they're doing is righteous in every case, and they want to be right and they want to win. They have no obligation, the prosecution does, to present the weaknesses in their case. That's the defendant's job. I oftentimes say, ladies and gentlemen, in voir dire, we're advocates. They have their side, we have ours. We have our position. If they're truly here for truth, justice, and the American way, by God, they should present all the weaknesses in their case, and I should not have to get up and ask a single question. But that never happens. They're not in the presenting all the facts. It's they're presenting their good facts. That's it. Let's not be so naive. Okay? Just like the defense attorney is not going to get up there and highlight their problem in their case. Sometimes you have to embrace it. Say, yeah, we did this, but I didn't do that. Right? My client's lots of different things. Chad Daybell's attorney may get up and, closing and say, hey, he may not be the husband of the year award for cheating on his wife, but he didn't kill anybody. He didn't know anybody was going to get killed. So sometimes you have to embrace the bad facts. But lawyer etiquette, lawyers should be polite to one another. But what happens is that emotions get in the way. And I find it more so in civil cases, to be honest with you. Some of the biggest jerks I've ever met have been civil attorneys. And, well, recently, a United States attorney. I was like, have I done something to offend you? Because I don't know why you're treating me so rudely. If you want to indict my client, knock yourself out, but he's not taking your crappy deal, right? Go for it. If you got it, indict him. If not, leave him alone. Let's see. Oh, Deborah. Good question. Scott, have you ever got a guilty person off, and how do you feel? Well, Deborah, if I've received lots of not guilties over the years, But that means, in fact, that they are not guilty. If you think about it, right? Because you're presumed innocent until and if the prosecution proves their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So if they failed to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, he's not guilty or she is not guilty. So think about that. I think the question you should ask is, has the prosecution ever blown a case of somebody that was guilty and they were not able to, and that person went back on the streets? Yeah. Okay. Sure. I've had several clients, although, I have a very strict policy of only representing innocent people. Let's just be very clear on that. And so sometimes it makes clients a little hard to come by. I'm just kidding. Yes, I've had clients that have been guilty, and they've been found not guilty. And what's the word I'm looking for? Who doesn't like to win? If you don't like winning or you're not competitive, you don't go to law school, right? It just makes no sense to me. I saw a lawyer friend of mine, and it said something to the effect of, why would somebody who hates confrontation become a lawyer? Because that's what you do, particularly if you're a litigator of some type. You do litigation. It's confrontation. It's, hey, your client did something wrong. The other side, no, I didn't do anything wrong. Yes, you did. I mean, listen, have I got people off that have done terrible, bad things? Yeah. It's the nature of the business. But, our system of justice, basically it's better to let 10 guilty people go free than one innocent person to be convicted. And I've had clients where I thought were innocent too that have been convicted. So it cuts both ways. I mean, sure, you get the little initial pump and then you talk, okay, fine. And all right, I'm going to go home and take a shower with a steel brush to get clean because I feel so dirty right about now. It's a whole gamut of emotions when you win a case like that. You don't know, but by that point you're in trial psychosis and you just believe your client's totally innocent and you're going to do everything you can. Kathy, thanks for the super chat there, Kathy. It's not showing up, but you know what I'm saying. Thank you, Kathy. Crime Talk. Is Lori Daybell going to take the stand? Why is she called Vallow still? Well, that's funny why you should say that. I've always referred to her as Vallow. I know they were married, but were they really, kind of thing? I don't know. It really doesn't matter. I just think it's easier to keep Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell separate instead of Vallow Daybell, right? Because really the real Daybell is Tammy, and she's deceased. I don't know. I think it's just been easier. But as I recall, the indictment listed her as Vallow. Frankly, if I was the defense, I'd go with Vallow all day long. Why would you want to be associated with Daybell, the other co-conspirator? Hello. Yes. You think she's going to take the stand? No way in heck is she going to take the stand. I will bet Ruby, I will bet you a big steak dinner, assuming you eat steak, that she will not take the stand. I don't see that happening any way possible. Here's one. Double clicked it. Another super chat. Mariah. Scott, do you think Lori's attorneys had a good strategy with his objections and then asking to voir dire the witness? I'm a criminal deputy court clerk in Virginia, and I've never seen an attorney do this. I do, when it relates to objection as to evidence, you can voir dire the witness. They try to, omit some sort of evidence, and you don't think the proper foundation's been laid, but before you make your objection, you want to make an appropriate record, and you say, Your Honor, may I voir dire the witness? I've never had a judge say no, sit down. You're like, okay. Prosecutor's like, okay, I'm going to pick up my file and go sit down now since you get to go to the podium. And you say, oh, you didn't do this. You didn't do this. You don't have any personal knowledge of this, do you? No. Your Honor, I object. Lack of foundation. Yeah, and here's the thing. Frankly, when you're in court, listen, yes, you want to win, but you want to make the record. If you don't object and you don't make your record, it's all waived for an appeal. So you got to do it sometimes. So yeah, it's not object to evidence being admitted. It's no different when an expert is offered as an expert. You can voir dire them based upon their qualifications. To say, Judge, I'm objecting to their admissions as an expert. You're usually not done because they're qualified. They have some training or experience beyond that of the everyday citizen that they can assist the jurors as a trier of fact. So bottom line is, yes, I think it's a good strategy. You're going to preserve the objections. But great question, Mariah. Let's see here. Tracy, what is voir dire? Voir dire. It's a French term that means to speak the truth. That is what they call the jury selection process. Ladies and gentlemen, this process is voir dire. It's a French word that means to speak the truth. So please speak the truth. Don't give me some perfunctory answer. Don't tell me the answer you think that the prosecutor, the judge, or I want to hear. Tell me the truth, because at the end of the day, we want qualified jurors. And a qualified juror is someone that's going to listen to all the evidence, reserve judgment until all the evidence is presented, and then be able to follow the court's instructions, whether they believe them or not. So if you can't be a fair and impartial juror, now is the time to ask the questions. So voir dire not only applies to the jury selection process. If there's an objection as to admission of some piece of evidence, the attorney, prosecution, or defense, whoever's maybe in opposition to its admission, can say, Your Honor, may I voir dire the witness, please? And it's usually something along the lines, oh, Officer Jones, you brought in this piece of evidence here today that's marked as People's Exhibit 1. Now, you didn't collect that evidence, did you? No. You didn't transport it back to the evidence room, did you? No. You didn't check it out for testing. You didn't do this. And I see all these red pieces of tape on here, which means that somebody else has taken out and checked it and they resealed it. You didn't do that, and you didn't do all those other things, did you? No, I did not. And you didn't bring it over here today. You're just here testifying to be offered at some point through your testimony. Is that right? Then you say, Judge, lack of foundation, lack of personal knowledge. Jess, a preliminary examination of a witness or a juror by a judge or counsel. Voir dire interrogation of the board members did not bode well for their case. Use an example there. Yep. That is the selection. Yes, that is the definition, so to speak. Yes. Hopefully I explained that just as concisely. I'm doing that. Yep. So thanks for those super chats. We had Mariah, and then we had Jess as well. Squeaky wheel. Is Lori Vallow available for pen pal correspondence, financial donations? I really need to find a girlfriend to keep my parents off my back. Is she legally available? Just like everybody that has a high profile case, I'm sure they will get correspondence, promotional deals. I can see it now. It's coming. Instead of YouTube influencers, we're going to have prison influencers. Today, Lori Vallow was looking good in her DOC green. She did a nice accent with a nice little piece of string and put a little ribbon or bow on it or something. I can see it now. It's coming. It's coming now. Is there another one? Scott, do you think these trials will be as long as expected? No, I don't. Letecia Stauch, I think, is going faster than they expected. And Letecia Stauch, if I remember correctly, no court on Friday, which is not unusual. Oh, no court tomorrow. Okay. And sometimes the court do that. There may be scheduling issues. Oftentimes here, at least in Colorado, the judges just don't do trials. They have dockets. They have hundreds of cases on their dockets. And they have a docket day, usually 1 or 2 days a week, where there will be status conference motions and other procedural hearings on cases where they could have 80 cases set in that particular day. Oftentimes, the judges don't like to farm those cases out to other judges because they too have dockets as well. So they try to, even in a long trial, try to keep those, do their own dockets. And frankly, in a long trial, it gives everybody a break as well. I've got a lengthy trial coming up in July. Excuse me, where we only do like 4-day trials because 4 days per week, so the court can do her docket in that particular case, which is just fine with me. Oh, Sleuth TV says the judge had a Zoom call tomorrow. And I didn't. I had an associate of mine that was actually down in Colorado Springs the other day for a hearing. I might add that we won, or he won. Should have had him go by there and see if it was let's see here. Scott, have you ever had any interest in being a judge? No. A lot of people have answered me this question. You know who's asked me this question more than ever in my life? Was my mother-in-law. So, have you ever thought of wanting to be a judge? What? And take a pay cut? Yeah, no, not going to do that. No, I don't really want to be a judge. I mean, if somebody came to me and said, Scott, we've had a long list of people that we just can't have to be a United States District Court judge, then maybe. So federal judge, yes, I could do that. Guys like me don't get to be federal court judges. You usually have to have a pedigree a mile long, usually go to some fancy Ivy League school and, done corporate law or something along those lines. I went to a very respectable law school, don't have a long history or pedigree. First one in the family to go to law school. There's people who do it, but if I was going to be a judge, it'd be a U.S. District Court judge, and let's just say I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time or energy on that. Just don't think so. And frankly, judges, people have this aura, or I wouldn't say aura, but this perception that judges are like somehow, smart and everything that they do is correct. Judges make mistakes. That's why we have multiple layers of judges to review trial court cases. I mean, if you think about it, the trial courts are like triage in an emergency room. You got more cases than you can possibly handle. There's no way you could try them all. So you better hope most of them plead guilty or go away. It's not good. There's some judges, but I would, this is just my own personal opinion. You can have a courthouse full of judges, right? Some of them, I mean, I think Denver, I don't know how many judges we have, but the district court bench, 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. We have in Denver, I think 10, no, I take that back, 11, 12 criminal judges just in the district court. So felonies, 12 judges. And then there's at least that many, if not more, in the civil division. Then you have some in the divorce court, and a couple in probate, etc. So there's 40 judges. And there's usually no more than one or two what I would consider to be great judges. And they probably say the same thing about, attorneys. Oh, there's only one or two great attorneys out there. You just, I don't know. I don't think it's what it's cut out to be. I have lots of people. Hell, I've got now three of a former associate of mine. Literally just got appointed to a county court judgeship. He got appointed last week. So now I've had at least three attorneys that have worked for me that went on to become judges. And, they're all good, great people. But I may have corrected them once or twice. They're not perfect. But we all left on good terms. They still spoke. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. The joke used to be, the A students become law professors. The B students become judges. The C students are the trial lawyers and make all the money. That was always the running joke. I don't know if it's true or not. Why do lawyers only want to talk over the phone? What happens if your phone is tapped? Not going to happen. You know how difficult it is to get a wiretap? It is very difficult. You basically have to be able to show that all of normal investigative techniques have failed. To tap an attorney's phone would be nearly impossible. You still want to be smart on the phone. But, I have no problem. Frankly, if a client wants to come in, you got a serious conversation, let's sit and talk. If it's a quick question, we can talk about it on the phone. But if it's serious, let's do it face to face. So you can tell, let me judge your, demeanor. How are you doing? Do I think you're just kidding me or something along those lines? Are you, you're scared? You're just having a bad day? What is it? So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. A chance of a lawyer's phone being tapped or slim to none. I can tell you, I have heard a couple of my conversations where my phone, somebody, a client's phone is being tapped and they minimized it. Okay. Just because it's on a wiretap. And once they realize if it's not relevant to the investigation or it's like to a counsel, they have to do what they call minimize it, which means they're not going to listen to it. And then they have to be able to show how many calls were minimized, et cetera, et cetera. It's much more difficult than you possibly most people give that to. I mean, unless of course you go to a FISA court and apparently they'll sign anything because nobody double checks it. Yes. All right. Well, all right. We got to go do our Patreon show. Are you familiar with artificial intelligence, lawyer phone tracking being tapped? Anything's possible. Scott, it's not true. Here it is. Scott's, it's not true. I had to contact FCC for changes made on my phone in October. I had to change numbers, told who did it, and said it wasn't privy. Okay. I'm not sure. I don't know. Anything's possible. I'm just not. I've never had to worry about it. I mean, I don't think, for them to target an attorney's phone, they would have to have some pretty you'd have to be like a mob attorney. And even then you'd have to be the target in such a way that they think that you are actually engaging in some sort of criminal conduct. So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just telling you. Lori, like Letecia, thinks they're believable. Lori doesn't have some proof of mental illness. Letecia does. Lori Vallow has a mental history of mental. She was incompetent for 10 months, but they're not running that defense. Let's see here before we go away. Let's see. They want to give me 4 months free service. I said no. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. All right. If you'd like to continue the conversation, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We're going to get back into this. Normally I do this on a Tuesday night, but I had other pressing matters that did not required to do. It's good to be back behind the Crime Talk microphone since it's been, gosh, almost a week and a half since we were really able to do a show. We're going to get back into it. Hot and heavy. It's just been busy, but guess what? I've resolved some cases that needed to be resolved, and now we can get back to this as well. But got to take care of the clients first. Sorry to say that. I would love to make sure we take care of all of the Crime Talk subscribers and fans as well. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Make sure you check every night for the Lori Vallow audio and also for the Letecia Stauch trial. And then when those are done, we'll have lots more to talk about. We'll see you next time.